Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm, and today we are reviewing a science fiction book. So we're back with our usual book reviews and we are going to explore Blackout by Connie Willis. So yeah, it seems like we're back to our one sci-fi book a month to review, which seems to be the pattern here on the channel. But we're trying, and this one is a time travel type of science fiction and mixed with some historical fiction into it. Now, this book is part of a series and also at the same time part of another series, kind of like the Cosmere, no, not the Cosmere, the Discworld, I mean, where certain books kind of overlap or they intersect in certain series. Whereas this one is actually the third book of a series called Oxford Time Travels, which you probably heard. The first one is called the Doomsday Book. It's a very famous one. I've read it. It's also very good. I don't have a review here on the channel. If you want me to do a review for that book, let me know down in the comments. But anyways, this is the third book of that series. But at the same time, it's the first one of a series called All Clear. Whereas the two books are basically this one, Blackout, and the other one called All Clear. So it might seem a bit confusing, but basically this is the first one of a series, and this is why I decided to review it, because it can be contained in its own thing, especially because even in the Oxford Time Travel series, every book is isolated from each other. They are very independent stories, even though they are within the same world. So you can take that into account. If you don't want to hear anything even then, because this is the third one of the series and you want to read the other two, go ahead. I think the Doomsday Book is a good one. To say nothing of the dog, which is the second one, not as good. I mean, it still has some interesting parts, but I don't think it captured the same impact as the Doomsday Book. But we're talking a lot about the series itself. Let's talk about this book. Well, Blackout was published in 2010 and it was nominated for a lot of awards back then. It was nominated, but it also won a lot of them, including the Hugo, the Locust, the Nebula, which are some of the biggest ones out there. On Goodreads, this book has over 26,000 ratings, almost reaching 27,000 actually, and the average score it has is a 3.85, which surprises me even more considering all of the awards that it got. I would expect to have a higher score, but I mean, we know that science fiction usually tends to have lower scores, but still, I would expect this one to be a bit higher. But now moving on to our housekeeping item, which is the synopsis. If you're new here, I'm just gonna read the synopsis so that you can be more or less situated regarding this book. But if you don't want to hear anything about it, not even the setup, then just skip to the next timestamp. It will jump right into the categories that we go through. That way you'll get the review that you're looking for. Otherwise, just stick around. It'll be probably less than a minute, so very quickly. Oxford, England in 2060. A trio of time-traveling scholars prepare to depart for various corners of the Second World War. Their mission? To observe, from a safe vantage point, the day-to-day nature of life during this critical historical moment. That was it. Wasn't it short? It was probably less than half a minute. But anyways, since we don't have to look at scores from previous books, because I'm considering this the first one of its own series, then let's just get on to our categories and we shall start with plot. In this book we have a few POVs, but like the synopsis says, we focus mostly on three main characters who happen to all travel to England in the Second World War, although at slightly different times. The premise of this book is fun and interesting, especially if you like this type of time traveling situations. And I think if you like this period in history, the Second World War. I think one of the issues with this book that I found regarding the plot is that it is a bit predictable, because I don't know if you've read the previous books by Connie Willis, but the ones where she has the time travel science to it, there are certain rules. For example, the same person cannot be at the same time in two different timelines in the same space, meaning that they cannot coexist at the same time because it would create a paradox. And also that the continuum doesn't really allow people to make changes to big world events, to the outcomes of them at least. So while having these rules is interesting for world building purposes, it also limits our characters and our plot, because then we know that even if they try to change something, it would already be what it would happen, or the world itself is stopping them from actually doing it. And so whenever they think they are changing things, we already know that in the end it won't really change anything. So that's the predictability sense of it that I'm talking about. Nonetheless, I think there are still very good moments in the book, a lot of surprising parts, but I think these were more connected to the characters themselves rather than be connected with the plot. One thing that I do have to complain as a negative point is the ending of this book. I don't enjoy when books just end abruptly in the middle of a scene or an arc, and that's just it. It's like they decided to cut the book in that particular point and nothing else for the reader after that. Because I prefer when there's some sort of closure for a mini arc, for the arc of that book. Even if the overarching arc for the series is still ongoing, I like to have some closure for, and I mean an arc that could be for a character arc or for a plot arc. It doesn't really need to be just one specific one. But however, this is not what happened with this book, and it was all left hanging very loosely. And so that, plus the predictability of the plot, really leaves me no choice but to give a 3 out of 5 for this category. Our second category talks about characters, and this is a fun cast. I liked all the characters, I mean some more than others of course, but that's just natural when you're reading a book with a few characters. But I think they all still were positive in the sense that my relationship with them was positive, and therefore I was always kind of enjoying reading about them. The side characters for this book I thought were also very funny and very well done, especially two children that I won't mention their names, but if you've read this book, you know perfectly well what I'm talking about. And if you don't, I won't spoil anything, but let's just say that those were side characters that I found extremely funny. I wish they were showing up more than what they did, but the moments where they showed up, it was very funny. I was laughing, I was chuckling, all of that. But now, what about the negatives of this category? I don't think there are negatives per se, but then again, there is an incompleteness to the character arcs because, again, the book just ends super abruptly. The characters are approaching a climax, or at least they are at a high in the sense of their development because something big happened just before, and then we really don't get to see how they react or what will happen after, because everything ends in a very cliffhanger way. And so because of that, it robs us a lot from the development that is going to happen, but only in the next book. And so this book suffers from it. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. But I mean, what I'm hoping happens is that in the next book, because we're going to have all this development plus the ending of their arcs, is that this category should go up to a 5, but I mean, let's see. Halfway through our review, we are on world building. And in this series, world building is pretty much, for me, how well does Connie Willis is able to describe this world, which in this case is England of the Second World War. I think she does a very good job. I think Connie Willis did their research amazingly well. Everything seemed very realistic with a lot of depth into it. And yeah, it just seems like they did their research, and it was very, I mean, I'm no specialist in England, the Second World War. However, as I was reading it, everything seemed very vivid. I could picture everything that was happening. Not only the events of that time, but the way people were dressed, the way people were acting, all of those seemed very, very good. And of course, regarding the world building part, that is the time travel, which is the science fiction part of it, I think everything sounds quite sound. I mean, when you talk or write about time traveling, you do need to make a choice on the rules. Either everyone can just go around and change everything, or it's a very strict and you can actually not change anything going to the past, only to the future. So I think once you've set up on that path, you just have to be consistent with it. And I think Connie Willis did an amazing job at being consistent with those rules. And it's not to say that Connie Willis doesn't bend them a bit, it's just she doesn't break them. It's like they can create tension when you think these rules are going to be broken, but they're never broken, and so the tension gets released. So I think there was a very good job on that part, and because of that, I'm going to give a 5 out of 5 for this category. And now let's delve into writing style. Connie Willis's prose is quite good. It provides good enough descriptions to give us a vivid image of this world, but without being over descriptive. And I mean, you definitely don't want to be over descriptive in a book like this, where we're going to the past and it feels very historical, so you don't want to feel like you're reading a history lesson. And that's because there are moments that feel very real with a lot of tension to them, and that, I mean, you don't have tension when you read history books, I think, my opinion at least. But in this book, even though it looks historical, you do have a lot of tension, so that really improves, and that's thanks to the writing. And the way that she does is because the characters, the main characters, even though they cannot change the outcome of the future events, they themselves don't know that. And also the thing is, they can put things into motion that would eventually change, so the world might just make a way for them to die or to disappear so that they don't change the outcome. So there is that tension that is created due to the rules of time traveling, and I think that is done very well. However, what I think has some less positive aspects is the pacing of this book. At the start, it's all good because you're getting the hang of it, especially if you haven't read any other Connie Willis novel and you're trying to figure out how time travel works and what they're actually doing in Oxford. So it gets some time to get the hang of it, but once you've got it, it's good. You are at a good rhythm. And towards the end, it's also very good with all the build-up that is happening as you're reaching the last pages. But again, going back to that end, it breaks off so cleanly that it completely whiplashes the reader with the pacing, because you're having this almost climax and suddenly the book stops. And also the middle part gets a bit meandering, so I feel like the end parts of the book are really good, very high in terms of quality of pacing. The middle not so good, and the actual ending is also not good. But I mean, I think this is also partially subjective, because it will depend on people's taste if they actually like that meandering part in the middle where you're exploring England of Second World War and seeing how everything works. Which, I mean, I'm a bit interested, but it's not a passion that I want that to know that much. So there's all of that. But because of this, I'm going to give this category a 4 out of 5. And our final category is our subjective enjoyment. My journey through this book was confusing, enjoying, boring, enjoying a lot, and disappointing. So you can see that it was quite a roller coaster. But yeah, what I have to say is that the ending really disappointed me quite a bit. I did not expect to have such a clean cut, especially after the build-up that was happening just pages before. I mean, I remember at that point I was frozen in place, just reading, wanting to reach that ending, that climax. Whereas before, when I was in the middle part, I was very reluctant in reading this book, and I was actually more interested in reading Lord of the Mysteries or any other book that I was reading at the time. So I think this category will sit in the middle for me with a 3 out of 5. Not a bad enjoyment, but also not amazing. The ups and downs are just a bit too much. And so we reached the end of our review. Just as a refresher, we have 3 for plot, 4 for characters, 5 for world building, 4 for writing style, and 3 for enjoyment, which gives us a final score of 3.8 out of 5. Funny enough, another book that has a very close score to the average Goodreads score, so it means that I'm thinking very similarly to the other people. But I can understand. I mean, the book has an interesting and fun premise, and the world is built brilliantly, is described beautifully, but only that cannot really save from the rest, especially from that clean break at the end. And I keep mentioning it, and I will keep doing it because it was just very abrupt. Did not enjoy it. I think maybe if this book and the second book were merged into one instead of being split, but I don't know, that would probably be a very, very long book. But anyways, if these two were merged, I think the scores will be very different, because then it would be so continuous and you would just keep reading, and then you would reach a second climax at the end of the second book. But I mean, as it stands, it's a 3.8, and a 3.8 shall be. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not as good as the Doomsday Book, for example. But let me know, what do you think? Have you read any Connie Willis books? Which one? Comment down below. And if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and I shall be seeing you on Thursdays and Sundays, okay? See you soon.